After being reborn, I suspected my 3 sisters could hear my inner voice. Should I tell my eldest sister, Chloe, that the imposter she dotes on, Julian, will eventually plot to steal her entire fortune? I watched as Chloe, who had been about to pat Julian on the head, suddenly punched him right in the face. Maybe I shouldn't tell my second sister, Olivia, that every time she showers, Julian secretly records her and sends the videos to his classmates? I saw Olivia, who was feeding Julian, suddenly slam the bowl of food down on his head. If my third sister, Sophia, knew she'd spend the latter half of her life imprisoned and drugged, all because Julian deliberately hired people to torture her, would she be devastated? I saw Sophia, who was about to help Julian up, suddenly kick him so hard he flew 10 meters away. Forget it. In every life, I paid with my own, just to win the approval of one of my sisters. It seems sincerity can't be exchanged for sincerity, and this time, I'm truly exhausted. In my last life, as someone who had transmigrated into this novel, I did everything to protect my 3 sisters by thwarting Julian's plans, only to be met with their disgust. Chloe, the eldest, was a cold-hearted CEO. She froze all my credit cards and threw me out of the Walton family home. Olivia, the second, was a gentle doctor. She secretly switched my medication, leaving me in constant pain. Sophia, the third, was a famous celebrity. She chose to hide my identity and allowed her fans to cyberbully me relentlessly. The last time I saw the 4 of them was in a dilapidated rental apartment. I was in a wheelchair, dressed in grease-stained clothes, while Julian wore a high-end custom suit he could never have afforded before, surrounded by my 3 sisters. He glanced at me sideways and sneered, "For the sake of our past friendship, if you apologize to me today and call me brother-in-law, I'll forgive you and take you back to the Walton estate. How about it? Call him brother-in-law? He wasn't worthy. He was the one who disfigured me and left me disabled, and his ultimate goal was nothing less than to ruin the Walton family." Unfortunately, no one believed a word I said. Everyone thought my intense jealousy of Julian led to my downfall. You think you're worthy of being called brother-in-law? You might as well just kill me. I clenched my jaw and spat at him fiercely. One day, your disgusting true colors will be exposed to. Before I could finish, someone slapped me hard across the face. I struggled to open my eyes and saw Chloe's cold expression. Her brow was furrowed in disgust, as if looking at something utterly repulsive. "Ethan, if you can't control that mouth of yours, I don't mind tearing it apart for you." "Sis, don't call me sister. From the day you framed Julian, you were no longer our brother." Those words were like daggers plunging into my bleeding heart. The light in my eyes faded. I wanted to say something, but my mouth opened to a dry, hoarse throat that couldn't form words. My heart began to ache again, and I clutched my chest, gasping for air. Olivia had mostly quit smoking, but now, because of Julian, she had picked up the habit again. She took 2 steps toward me, pressed the still-lit cigarette but firmly onto the back of my hand, ignoring my hoarse cry of pain, and pointed at my chest, mocking, "Ethan, your congenital heart disease might just be a result of your blackened heart. I see no reason to treat it anymore, do you?" The pain was so intense I nearly suffocated and fell from my wheelchair. Sophia slowly crouched down, frowning at my emaciated skin and bones appearance. Why play the victim? Ethan, do you really think acting miserable will earn our forgiveness? You're dreaming, and by the looks of it, you haven't learned your lesson." Her words were loaded, and I knew exactly what she meant. Just because I had cursed at Julian, Sophia had allowed his fans to viciously attack me online. Some even stalked me, pushed me out of my wheelchair, and just watched as I struggled to crawl on the ground. Without medication, even breathing became an excruciating task. I was like a dying fish, covered in wounds, collapsed on the floor as my consciousness faded. I tried to recall any moment in my life that wasn't painful, but I couldn't think of a single one. My sisters ignored my outstretched hand for help and turned to leave, leaving behind only a muttered curse. Bad luck. I opened my mouth, but finally, I had no strength left to struggle. This was already my second rebirth. I had schemed and planned every step, but in the end, I still couldn't overcome the halo of the destined protagonist. This world was a novel about a protagonist with a golden touch. My sisters were the main villains, but under the influence of fate, they were destined to end up with the protagonist, Julian, willingly becoming his loyal dogs. To save them from their fate, I desperately tried to expose Julian's true intentions, but in their eyes, it only looked like I was jealous of him for stealing their affection. I went from being the young master of the Walton family to a disfigured, disabled outcast, despised and cursed by all. No matter how many times I was reborn, Julian would always weave his way between the 3 Walton sisters, successfully replacing me as the most important person in their hearts. I knew that when I opened my eyes, everything would reset to the very beginning. But this time I was truly tired. Ethan, why aren't you eating? Is my cooking not to your liking? I'm sorry, I didn't know you disliked this. Tell me what you want to eat, and I'll make it for you. My pupils contracted. It was Julian's voice. At this point in time, he had already become my friend and had saved my sisters several times, earning him the quiet reputation of being the Walton family's lucky charm. He wasn't wearing his usual shabby clothes but a designer outfit I had given him, looking more like the Walton family's young master than I did. Right now, his face was a mask of grievance, a grown man biting his lower lip as he spoke. I specifically asked Mrs. Davis, and she said seafood was your favorite. Are you not eating now because I'm the one who made it? Don't worry, I followed her instructions step by step. The act had gone on long enough, but I remained silent. Julian started to get anxious. Ethan, why are you ignoring me? Are you disgusted with me because I came from the projects? Do you think I'm dirty? I opened my mouth but could only produce a few meaningless sounds. I raised a hand to my throat, trying to force myself to say something, afraid that if I upset Julian, my 3 sisters who adored him would use it as another excuse to torment me. But I couldn't manage to form a complete sentence. Chloe's gaze shifted between Julian and me, her eyes darkening. Ethan, is this how a Walton is supposed to behave? Julian put his heart into this. Even if you don't want to eat it, you will. I lowered my eyes, a cold sneer forming in my mind. Asterisk, these 3 already have eyes for no one but Julian. How could I dare to be disgusted with you? After all, you'll soon be the other master of the Walton family. What right does a disabled outcast, kicked out to live in the projects, have to look down on you? Asterisk, anyone who didn't know better would think Julian was your actual brother, the way you defend him. Oh, I forgot, not a real brother, but a lover boy. And who even remembers I'm allergic to seafood? Does my life not matter? Asterisk, for some reason, the dinner table fell silent. The 3 women, who had been smiling just moments before, suddenly wore cold expressions and stopped talking. I forced down the sickeningly rich seafood, bite by bite. Suppressing the urge to vomit, I managed to smile for Julian. Chloe's face had been dark, as if someone had struck a nerve. Now, seeing me quickly finish the seafood and turn to leave with a pale face, she quickly reached out. Ethan, are you not feeling well today? Why don't you let Olivia take a look at you? She was a doctor. In my past life, she was the one who prescribed my heart medication, and she was also the one who stopped it. She watched me suffer in agony, having long forgotten that I was once her beloved little brother. I stopped on the stairs and looked back, my expression hidden in the shadows. Asterisk, a mere allergic reaction won't kill me. I'm just so tired. Please stop tormenting me. I'll agree to anything. I didn't forget you were allergic to seafood on purpose? Not on purpose. What a pathetic and laughable excuse. Asterisk, I couldn't be bothered with their charade any longer and turned to leave without a second thought. The moment Julian appeared, I knew that no matter what I did, I would never be the favored one, so I simply gave up. A sudden knock on the door pulled me from my chaotic thoughts. It was Julian again, with his usual heart-wrenching, pitiful act. His voice was laced with tears as he knocked repeatedly, as if he would keep going forever if I didn't open up. Ethan, what's wrong? Did I do something to upset you? I'm sorry, please don't ignore me, okay? Aren't we best friends? His words were full of grievance, but I heard another voice at the same time, right in my ear. It was still Julian's voice, but what it said was the complete opposite of his spoken words. Asterisk system, what the hell is wrong with Ethan? His recent actions weren't in the script. Now those female side characters think I'm bullying him, and my favorability has dropped by a whole 10 points. Asterisk, rest assured. Host, I have checked. Their favorability towards you is still above 50. The drop is within a controllable range. Asterisk, I felt as if I'd been plunged into an ice cave, a chill creeping up my spine. Though I was in a warm room, I couldn't stop shivering. It was those voices again. In my previous life, after Julian orchestrated the car accident that left me briefly in a coma, I would often hear him communicating with this mechanical voice. I heard them plotting to ruin the Walton family, to turn it into his stepping stone. As soon as I woke up, I immediately went to find Chloe to tell her about it. But no matter what I said, all I received was her cold, disgusted glare. Julian then emerged from Chloe's private study, a room no one else was allowed to enter, looking like the perfect male manipulator. Chloe, maybe Ethan just had a moment of weakness and did something foolish. It's okay, I forgive him. Chloe's expression grew uglier with Julian's display of magnanimity. Ethan, how did you become like this? You failed to frame Julian with a car accident, and now you're trying to slander him in front of me? And to think he took care of you while you were in a coma, begging me not to blame you. I don't remember much of what happened after that, only that from that moment on, I was truly cast out by the Walton family. My small suitcase held only a few simple clothes. It was pouring rain outside, but Chloe's expression never wavered as she shoved me out the door. She looked down at me, covered in mud and filth, and said, "Ethan, since you can't tolerate Julian, from now on, the Walton family will no longer recognize you as its young master. Without that title, what do you think you are?" The memory made my whole body tremble. What act was he putting on now? I didn't even have to guess. I knew Julian wasn't alone outside the door. I wondered whose favorability he was trying to boost this time. Whatever, it didn't matter whose it was. It had nothing to do with me. I was leaving the Walton family anyway. Knowing I couldn't avoid it, I took a deep breath, walked over, and opened the door. Julian's knocking hand froze in midair. Unfazed, he reached out to take my hand, but I sidestepped him. "If something's wrong, just tell me. Please don't ignore me, okay?" he whined, his eyes constantly darting to my third sister, Sophia, standing behind him. In my past life, he was only ever nice to me when my sisters were around. He had been putting on that act for so long just now, likely all for Sophia's benefit. Sophia was silent for a long time before finally speaking, but it was to defend Julian. She looked at me searchingly. "Ethan, I've heard from Chloe and Olivia these past few days. Is there some misunderstanding between you and Julian? Weren't you two good friends? You have no idea how many times he's cried in private because you've been ignoring him. How about this? I know a very famous therapist. If you have some issues you don't want to talk to Chloe or Olivia about, you can tell me. I'll take you to see them tomorrow, okay?" So you've understood nothing and now you want to send me to a therapist? Right, in your minds, anyone who dislikes Julian must have a mental problem, is that it? When you let your fans cyberbully me, I didn't see you worrying about my mental health. Are you just trying to get revenge for Julian by having me locked up in a psychiatric hospital? Sophia froze, her expression twisting. She looked at Julian, then at me, and finally stared down at her own hands in disbelief. "Ethan, did I do something wrong? Please don't hate me, okay?" My face was a mask of vigilance. I shook my head and quickly shut the door. After the door closed, I heard a loud thud, followed by Julian's pained groan. System. Warning, female side character Sophia's favorability has decreased by 10. Current favorability has dropped below 50. Host, please find a way to raise it back up as soon as possible. Don't you dare talk to me like that. My two idiot sisters might have been fooled by you, but I haven't. You'd better give me an explanation, or I won't hesitate to. I couldn't hear the rest as they must have walked away. I didn't understand Sophia's sudden change, nor did I care to. Seeing how fiercely they defended Julian already, it was only a matter of time before they repeated the mistakes of the past. Whatever else Julian planned to do to the Walton family had nothing to do with me. For me, nothing was more important than staying alive. I rarely returned to the Walton estate anymore, and correspondingly, Julian was seen there more and more. The family had always hidden my identity from the public to avoid trouble for me. The outside world only knew that the Waltons had a young master who was in poor health and had been doted on since childhood, but they didn't know who he was. Julian had now practically assumed this title. He never denied it. When people asked, he would just smile without a word. To others, this was a tacit admission that he was the Walton family's young master. My roommate, Kevin, glanced at me and sneered, "Ethan, how come you're not hanging out with Julian anymore? At the beginning of the semester, weren't you two always riding to campus in the Walton family car? What, had a falling out? Did he kick you out of the family car?" I gave him a look, then lowered my head and continued organizing my homework, ignoring him. "Even Julian can't be bothered with you anymore. You failed to climb the Walton family ladder, so stop acting so high and mighty." Just as Kevin finished speaking, Julian walked in, wearing an expression that said he had, coincidentally, overheard everything. He feigned conciliation. "Kevin, let it go. Isn't it common knowledge that Ethan hates me? I can't force him to like me." Kevin snorted. "I just can't stand his holier-than-thou attitude. Wasn't he desperately trying to get close to you before? What's with the act now?" Julian lowered his eyes, lost in thought for a moment, then looked at me and said viciously, "I'd like to see how long you can keep this up." After delivering their threats, the two of them left. Before closing the dorm room door, Julian glanced back at me, his eyes filled with calculation. I heard him ask the system again. "System, who has the highest favorability right now?" Currently it's Chloe, but a favorability of 60 is still too low. You must raise her favorability to 80 within a week, or you won't be able to predict the upcoming plot points. Upcoming plot points. I remembered that Chloe gets stranded at sea while going to sign a contract, and Julian is the one who rescues her, which forms the basis of their relationship. Whatever, what does any of that have to do with me? I packed my things and headed for the library, but on the way, I was met with strange looks. People pointed at me, whispering, "Is that the guy from the online forum?" I kept my head down, intending to ignore them, but a clear voice stopped me in my tracks. For some reason, Julian had appeared near the library again. He walked over and grabbed my arm tightly, preventing me from leaving. "Ethan, don't listen to their nonsense. It's all a misunderstanding. They might not believe you, but I do." He said the words, but he only repeated his own subjective feelings over and over, never offering any proof of my innocence. Onlookers would only comment on his kindness. They wouldn't consider that I might have actually done nothing wrong. What a classic case of the thief crying, "Stop thief." My silence was taken as an admission of guilt, and the insults from the crowd only intensified. Julian looked even more wronged and helpless than I did, his eyes welling up with tears as he looked at me. Asterisk, here we go again. Does Julian have any other tricks besides crying? Asterisk, I lowered my eyes, wanting only to get away from him, but I couldn't shake his grip. Asterisk, warning. Female side character Sophia is approaching. Host, please maintain your persona and avoid any actions that will lower favorability. Asterisk, Julian's expression changed instantly. He then cried out in a tearful voice, "Stop talking about Ethan. He's not that kind of person. You've misunderstood him." Asterisk, with an act like this, anyone would think we're the best of friends. I've supposedly seduced your sisters, yet you're still defending me like this. How incredibly kind of you. Asterisk, I looked down, let out a sneer, and my gaze fell on my reddened, swollen wrist. I frowned, the pain registering belatedly. Sophia's voice cut through the crowd from the edge. Not what kind of person? Even with a hat and sunglasses, she couldn't hide her striking figure, and her die-hard fans quickly recognized her. Isn't that Sophia Walton? It has to be. Looks like she's here to back up Julian. After all, her brother is being deceived by someone like Ethan, yet he's still determined to be friends with him. The noise around me was a chaotic buzz. As the center of the incident, I felt completely detached from it all. Asterisk, when will this farce finally end? Isn't Sophia here to support Julian? What is she waiting for? Shouldn't she be rushing over to push me down and curse me out? Asterisk, Sophia frowned. Amidst the shocked and gossiping stares of the crowd, she walked straight towards Julian, then handed the cake she was holding to me, who was standing behind him. Her voice was full of affection. "Ethan, I've been so busy with work lately, I haven't had time to visit. Are you getting used to living on campus? How about you move into my apartment near the university? Oh, and this is a strawberry cake I bought for you. I was in a rush today and couldn't get it from your favorite bakery, but I'll get it for you next time, okay?" The entire crowd fell silent. Even Julian's face turned increasingly grim. I pressed my lips together, unwilling to reach out and take the cake. Asterisk, what is this new madness? I get it. You're trying to pull the same trick again, making everyone at school misunderstand our relationship so they'll bully me, right? Sophia, you never get tired of the same old tactic. The students combined with your obsessive fans, with that kind of power stacked against me, getting acid thrown on me like last time would be getting off easy. Asterisk, the memory of that bone-deep pain and the pervasive, humiliating scrutiny made me tremble. As expected, nothing good ever came from being associated with Julian. Hearing my inner thoughts, Sophia's face went pale. She snatched a microphone and announced loudly to the crowd, "What are you all talking about? Ethan seducing me? The Walton family has only ever had one young master, and that is Ethan. Julian is just a servant in our house. How did he become the young master of the Walton family?" According to the system's broadcast, Sophia's favorability was plummeting, and Julian finally panicked. He had assumed that, with her pity for him, she would never expose his status as a servant in the Walton household. Now, everyone who had just been cursing me turned their malicious gazes on him. His face was ashen, tears streaming down as he shouted, "So what if I'm a servant? I earn my own money through hard work, unlike you rich kids born with silver spoons who get everything they want just by asking. But even so, you can't trample on my dignity. My family background might not be as good as yours, but I am in no way inferior to you." His passionate outburst stunned everyone present. Even Sophia looked uncharacteristically guilty. Seeing his chance, Julian turned and ran away, tears streaming down his face. Asterisk, the system promptly broadcasted, "Congratulations, host, female side character Sophia's favorability plus 20, returning it to 50. Asterisk, now that everyone knew I was the true Walton heir, their attitudes toward me became strange. Kevin even posted a confession under the anonymous thread that had accused me of sleeping my way up. It was all because I believed Julian's lies that I made that post. All the ambiguous evidence was provided by him. I was used as his pawn. I sincerely apologize to you, Ethan. I'm sorry. Suddenly, the tide turned, and more people began to curse Julian. They called him vain and unscrupulous, saying they'd seen plenty of people like him who were ungrateful and hypocritical. He claimed to be self-reliant and strong, so what if he was a servant? Yet the moment his job was mentioned, he threw a fit. If he truly didn't care about status, why didn't he clarify when people mistook him for the Walton heir? Unfortunately, I wasn't paying much attention to the forums. All I knew was that Chloe called, her voice cold as she ordered me to come home. I didn't need to guess why. She was going to stand up for Julian. I dragged my feet until dusk before knocking on the door of the Walton estate. Julian was sitting in the middle of my three sisters, sobbing. The scene was an almost perfect replica of the last thing I saw before I died in my previous life. It was happening again. Sophia looked the most conflicted. She seemed to want to come to me but ultimately remained by Julian's side. Ethan, you went too far this time. I went too far? I don't even know what I did. Julian was the one who didn't clarify his identity and encouraged others to spread rumors that I was a bad person. Have I said a single bad word about him or defended myself even once? Right, they probably think this was all a trap I set to frame Julian. But no one cared enough to notice that because of everything that happened in my past life, I can't even speak anymore. Understanding their accusatory stance, I stopped at the doorway, not taking another step forward. There was no place for me in this family anymore. Sophia's expression changed as if she had finally figured something out. She rushed towards me. Ethan, you. Julian's system started beeping frantically as Olivia's and Sophia's favorability scores plummeted one after the other. Only Chloe gave me a deep, unreadable look, showing no reaction. Seeing this, Julian lunged for Chloe's hand as if it were a lifeline, tears streaming down his face. Chloe, you know I'm not that kind of person. I never cared about the money in this family. I only cared about you all. You're like my real family. You've shown me the warmth of a home. Maybe my presence threatened Ethan, so before he could finish, Olivia cut him off coldly. So what? You didn't come to the Walton family for money? Who would believe that? If you really weren't after money, why didn't we see you refuse those limited edition clothes and sports cars Ethan gave you with the same dignity and backbone Sophia mentioned? Sophia was a good actress, but she was a slow thinker. Now that Olivia pointed it out, she finally saw the holes in Julian's story. That's right. If you really didn't care, why did you insist on pestering Ethan to ride in the family car to school with him? Why didn't you explain when people mistook you for the Walton heir? It's not that you don't care. You care desperately. In an instant, both of their favorability scores had nearly bottomed out. Julian's face was ashen. His only hope was to cling tightly to Chloe. Chloe's eyes softened as she gently stroked his hair. Julian, don't be afraid. As long as you've done nothing wrong, I will stand by you. So, you must not disappoint me. Julian leaned against her dependently, and from a corner where no one else could see, he shot me a defiant look. Even if Olivia's and Sophia's favorability is gone, Chloe is the one who really holds the power in the Walton family. As long as he has her heart, what is there to worry about? He's set to become the master of this house. Anyway, Olivia's and Sophia's favorability is already shot. I'll use what's left of it to trade for the next plot point involving Chloe. Host, are you sure you want to do this? Negative favorability is a completely different concept. These side characters will feel nothing but pure disgust for you. They're just two side characters. How much trouble can they cause me, no matter how much they hate me? Hurry up and make the exchange. Ding. Plot point exchange successful. Current favorability, Olivia -10, Sophia -20. Plot point unlocked. In half a month, Chloe will be stranded at sea while on her way to sign a contract. Host can prepare in advance to rescue her and will surely win her over completely. A triumphant smile spread across Julian's face. I understood his plan and let out a cold laugh. Well then, I wish you success in rescuing Chloe with your system's help. She'll surely fall deeply for you after you save her life. You could probably even use it as leverage to make her marry you, and she might just agree. By then, letting someone who wants to destroy the Walton family marry into it, seducing Olivia and Sophia while being married to Chloe, what great fortune for the family. My blessings to you all. May you be locked together forever. Chloe gave me another one of her deep, complex looks that I couldn't decipher. But I made a bold guess. She wanted to kick me out just like in my past life, but was finding it hard to say the words. So I packed my bags myself and left the Walton estate. I took everything that belonged to me, even getting a new bank card for my money. That's why I wasn't as destitute as last time, forced to rent a squalid apartment. Olivia and Sophia actually came to see me often. I couldn't tell if it was out of guilt or another act, but their eyes were filled with pity. Olivia would always find time to visit, chatting with me as if teaching a child to speak, only leaving dejectedly when I didn't respond. Sophia also offered to take me to a doctor more than once, but I refused each time with a shake of my head. Half a month after moving out, I received an invitation. It was for a floating art exhibition hosted by my favorite painter. Without much thought, I packed my things and went. It turned out the exhibition space on the yacht was pathetically small. The vessel was mostly for the rich and powerful to party. There I saw Chloe, and standing beside her, looking dapper and poised in a suit, was Julian. He seemed to have expected my arrival, a sarcastic smile playing on his lips. He spoke to his system. Asterisk, since this plot point requires a death, why can't it be Ethan? If he wasn't born into the Walton family, what would he be? He might as well be my stepping stone. At least his death would have some purpose. Asterisk, Chloe clearly saw me too. She frowned, a bad feeling seeming to wash over her. She turned to Julian and appeared to question him about something, but when she looked back, I had already disappeared into the crowd. Julian's venomous voice echoed in my ear like a persistent parasite. Asterisk, go ahead and be smug, Ethan. We'll see who gets the last laugh. Asterisk, I sighed. I wanted to curse him out but didn't know where to start. I knew his intentions were malicious, but I never expected his accomplices to be so bold as to drug and abduct me while I was just standing in a crowd at an art show. When I woke up, I was hanging like a fish off the side of the yacht, just a few meters above the dark, churning sea. Next to me, in the same predicament, was Julian. Seeing I was awake, he quickly squeezed out a few crocodile tears and cried, "Chloe, Ethan's awake. You should save Ethan. My life isn't worth anything." A man in a suit sneered, "Well, Chloe, have you made your decision? One is your real brother, the other is your lover boy. Who are you going to save?" At this point, how could I not understand Julian's intention? He just wanted to use Chloe's choice to crush my spirit. Too bad for him, he miscalculated. From the moment I died that horrible death, I had abandoned all familial affection. It wasn't worth it. I didn't care about Chloe's choice. I only cared about whether I would survive. Chloe raised her hand, hesitated for a moment, then slowly pointed at Julian. Her voice was heavy. You let Julian go. He's innocent." The man in the suit laughed loudly. "Excellent, Chloe. I never thought you'd sink to sacrificing your own family for a pretty boy. I wasn't wrong about you." He waved his hand, and one of his men pretended to untie Julian, but instead swiftly cut one of the ropes holding me, leaving the other one on the verge of snapping. The man continued, "Did you think I couldn't see through your little reverse psychology trick? You only said you cared about Julian because you were afraid I'd hurt your brother, right? Asterisk, or maybe, just maybe, she meant what she said? It's less about her caring for my life and more about her not wanting to risk guessing your intentions and putting Julian in danger. Whatever. They both escape in the end anyway and end up kissing in a lifeboat. Instead of using me as a weak threat, you should just slash Julian right now." Chloe would probably burst into tears from the heartache. Asterisk, Chloe's expression shifted several times before she finally chose to compromise. "You just want the bid for the Southside project, don't you? I'll withdraw from the competition." "You let him go." Julian instinctively thought she was talking about him and was moved to tears. Chloe, do you think you're in any position to negotiate with me?" The man in the suit interrupted. "The Southside project isn't enough. I also want the Walton family's recent partnership with the Chi Corporation. Even I knew about that partnership. It was the secret deal Julian later sold out. Why was this man demanding it now? It seemed the plot had changed in ways I wasn't aware of. Julian also hadn't expected the man to be so greedy. This wasn't what they had agreed upon at all. He wanted to use the Walton family as a springboard into high society, not cripple them. He coughed twice to remind the man, only to have one of his own ropes cut threateningly in response. "What are you coughing for? Weren't you the one who gave me this information? What, you don't want me to talk about it now? What nonsense are you talking about? I said no such thing." He frantically tried to signal with his eyes, having forgotten that to bargain with a tiger, you need to have power of your own, or you'll just end up as its meal. Besides him, why would these powerful people, born to look down on him, care about some so-called partnership agreement? Unfortunately, he couldn't see the truth. Relying on his system to know the plot in advance, he naively believed everything would go according to his plan. A sudden gust of wind rocked the yacht with a violent wave, and the already frayed rope snapped. Terrified by the sudden turn of events, Julian screamed, "Chloe, save me!" And then, He watched as Chloe sprinted and lunged towards me. It wasn't just him. Even I was wide-eyed with shock. Chloe held me incredibly tight, even using her own body as a human shield, hitting the water hard a split second before I did. She struggled to keep me afloat, searching for something to grab onto while swallowing mouthfuls of salty seawater. Yet she still tried to comfort me. "Ethan, don't be afraid. Your sister is here." I was stunned for a moment, wondering what kind of act this was. I only dared to curse silently in my mind. "You phony? Isn't this the part where you're supposed to be hugging Julian and calling him my dearest Julian?" Chloe's expression stiffened. Thankfully, the rescue team I had contacted beforehand arrived quickly. Even so, I was shivering uncontrollably from the cold when they pulled me onto the speedboat. Chloe draped a thick coat over me before finally turning her attention to the struggling figure in the distance. Julian wasn't so lucky. A large wave had swept him dozens of meters away the moment he fell in. By the time he was rescued, he was barely breathing. Knowing Julian was up to no good, how could I not have prepared in advance? Being able to hear his conversations with the system, I had a good idea of his plan even without knowing all the details. That's why I contacted a rescue team and the police before boarding the yacht, ensuring none of the bad guys would get away. Chloe looked at the unconscious Julian, her expression unreadable, and instructed her men who had rushed to the scene. "Take him for medical treatment. It's best if he doesn't die, but he doesn't need to live well either." Of course, Julian didn't die, but his health was already poor, and after being submerged in the icy seawater for so long, he developed irreversible health problems. His plot with the man in the suit was, at a minimum, kidnapping and extortion, but on a larger scale it was intentional injury. With the Walton family involved, none of them escaped, and each was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Chloe also took me to visit Julian. I didn't know her intentions, so I just followed her obediently. Through a thick pane of glass, we saw Julian, who was so thin he was almost unrecognizable. Yet he was still convinced Chloe was there to save him. "Chloe, everything that happened was Ethan's idea. It was all his trap." He acted as if he was certain Chloe would believe him and that I wouldn't defend myself, cleanly shifting all the blame onto me. Chloe looked at him and sneered. "Humph, still acting at a time like this? It's pointless." Julian's face went white. He frantically cursed the system in his mind. Asterisk system. Isn't Chloe's favorability at 80? Why is she treating me like this? Logically, she should be head over heels in love with me by now. Asterisk the system's voice was a garbled mess. Asterisk host's injuries have a significant impact on the system. System undergoing maintenance. Maintenance failed. Female side character Chloe's current favorability. -80. Asterisk asterisk what happened? Why did Chloe's favorability drop so drastically? This shouldn't be happening. A drop from 80 to -80 is too extreme. Could Julian's system really be malfunctioning? Asterisk Julian was shocked and began to cry and scream, refusing to believe the system's data. He shrieked Chloe's name, as she was now the only person who could get him out. Chloe spoke calmly. "It seems your so-called system isn't so omniscient after all. It can't even see through a simple disguise." Julian and I shared the same expression, staring at her as if we had seen a ghost. Asterisk I know Julian has a system because I was reborn and can hear his thoughts. But how does Chloe know? Asterisk the person who caused the shock, however, had no intention of answering the question. "You want to get out, don't you?" Chloe said. "As it happens, Olivia's team has a new partnership with a national laboratory. They're currently researching the human brain. I imagine someone with a system in their head would be a perfect research subject." Now, no matter how much Julian struggled or cried that he'd rather stay in prison, it was useless. His head was covered with a device, and he was wrapped up like a mummy and sent to the laboratory. I was forced to move back into the Walton estate. Without Julian, my 3 sisters seemed to have awakened, and they now competed to be nice to me. Yet, I could no longer find any sense of belonging in this home. Olivia was busy with the lab, but on her occasional visits home, she would bring updates on Julian. During the initial scans, we thought the shadow in his brain was a tumor, but it turned out to be a cluster of data that we can't yet decipher with our current technology. Once we crack it, creating any kind of system won't be a problem. As for Julian, Olivia said he was now a shell of a person. His body couldn't withstand the intensity of the experiments and was essentially discarded by the lab after it began to break down. The system was in his head, so all they needed was to keep his brain active. Chloe later talked to me a lot. She said she only remembered her past life after I had moved back to the university. Turned out she, like me, had been reborn. She learned about Julian's system from my inner thoughts and, fearing it was some other kind of trick, decided to play along and trap both him and his system in one fell swoop. "Ethan, are you really going abroad?" I stopped before the security checkpoint and gave her a firm nod. Regardless of whether Julian was punished in this life, or whether my sisters had awakened and realized their mistakes, the suffering I endured could not be erased. I couldn't ignore it, nor could I force myself to pretend nothing had happened and continue being the carefree young master of the Walton family. Rather than that, I would rather go abroad to study and pursue my dream of becoming a painter. As for their punishment, perhaps waking up from Julian's deception and realizing what they had done was punishment enough. After all, their brother, the young master of the Walton family, had already died at their own hands. I had to leave. Hearing me speak, Chloe froze. My aphasia had gradually healed once I realized the purpose of my words wasn't to defend myself or to be heard by others. But I had never spoken in front of them before. This was the first time. I walked through security, facing the blue sky and a brighter, better future. I didn't look back. The moment I decided to leave, I had left them behind completely. Goodbye. From now on, I won't be your brother anymore. I'll just be me.